when it comes down to assisted livings, it's all about the licensing. And this is something that there is really no salesperson out there that talks about this. But it's all about licensing. And all of the assisted livings are called assisted livings, but each one of them is licensed differently. And depending on the licensing they have, they can or cannot provide certain services. So if someone needs assisted living services like a one-person assistance, the facility has to be licensed for that. If that person has a fall, break a hip, returns from the hospital, and all of a sudden they require a two-person assistance, meaning that they need two caregivers to help them transfer out of the bed or in the bathroom and things like that, the facility has to have the proper licensing in order to provide a two-person assistance. If someone moved in at the time of their move-in, they had diabetes and they were managing the diabetes by taking a pill. But 2 years later, the diabetes kind of got out of control and the person all of a sudden needs insulin shots and their glucose checked 3 times a day. The facility has to be licensed to provide that service. So there is a wide variety of services that an assisted living can provide, but only if they have the right licensing, only if they have the proper licensing for that. So this is a technicality that really not salespeople, they don't talk about that. They don't go in depth for that. And probably that is one of the reasons where people, they do their own search, they find things online, they set up a tour to visit that particular place. Everything looks lovely, as they most of them do, and they move their loved one in there. But then 2 years later, a year later, 4 years later, or more, um, the family receives a 30-day notice that the facility wants their loved one to move out within 30 days, and they don't know why. They don't understand why. And but in most cases, that is the reason why, is because of those technicalities that have to do with the type of licensing the facility has, the assisted living has.
It is really good to know like how licensing is important in assisted living facility or all senior care options facilities. So according to you, do you have any data or any estimations like in Seattle area, how many percentage of facilities have the full licensing and how many ratios they don't have fully licensed?
Well, I don't have a data on paper. I have a data in my head.
Okay.
Uh, that is somewhat fluid because facilities, they can change the type of license they have, and they do sometime. Um the type of licensing they have, it translates for a facility, it translates in uh, it impacts a facility in different ways. And for example, staffing. You know, if the license for a facility, assisted living facility, uh, allows the facility to provide a higher level of care, like two-person assistance and diabetes care, sliding scale, insulin shots, things like that. So that means the facility is required per regulations to have more caregivers, to have more nurses, to have the nurses to have more hours per day and more days per week. And uh, it it is related to diet. It is related to, so it changes the whole spectrum of services and staffing and everything for an assisted living in order to match the criteria that is required uh, of the licensing that they have. So the the just to give an example, uh, the higher level of care, they're allowed to do through the licensing they have, the more caregivers they need to have on staff, and the lower is going to be the staff to resident ratio. Because in that facility, they're going to have more residents that require a higher level of care, so they need to have more caregivers. And that one caregiver is going to have a less number of residents to work with. The same with nurses, the same with med techs. That would be the staff that does the medication administration and things like that. So the licensing, it is one of the most important things, if not the most important thing, that families should ask about, and to get the information.